Malik came home for Thanksgiving on a Wednesday afternoon, and I picked him up from the airport because Kareem had a job interview he ran late, which is his own thing. I think I'll get to. But the short version is Kareem is finally, maybe carefully the way you test ice before you put the full weight on it, beginning to find his way back to himself. I was early to the airport because I always am early to everything, which Tasha says is a control mechanism, which I say it's just me being on time. And while I sat in the cell phone lot waiting for Malik's text, I thought about Birmingham from the car window. About what the city looked like from a certain angle. The old churches, the old new constructions going on. Over the bones of neighborhood that used to be something specific and now becoming something generic. The way cities gentrify over their own history like a skin growing over a wound that was never properly cleaned. Birmingham. People who aren't from here think they know it from the textbooks, the photographs, the fire hoses, and the German shepherds, and the four little girls in the white dresses whose name were every black child in this city learns before they learn multiplication. Addie Mae, Cynthia, Carol, Denise, 16th Street Baptist Church, September 15, 1963. And the city has been carrying that Sunday morning ever since, the way you carry something that happened to your body. Not always in your conscious mind, but always in your posture. What the textbook don't tell you is that what it feels like to grow up here right after. Grow up in a city that whole country watched burn and then looked away from. Go to school in a building named after people who marched and taught by a curriculum that treats the marching as finished, as historical, as something that happened and then resolved. To be black and Muslim in Birmingham, which is its own specific navigation, welcomed in the struggle, questioned in the faith, explained at every border. Baba used to say Birmingham made him feel more American than anywhere else he lived. I used to think that was a compliment. I'm older now and I understand it was more complicated than that. Malik came through the arrivals with his backpack on his shoulder and his earbuds in. Walks in, the particular walk he had since 14, unhurried, long stride, the walk of someone who'd moved through the world without being stopped and searched and questioned and followed, which it's his own kind of inheritance, his own kind of thing that was given to him without him knowing, though the giving was never guaranteed, and we have all known that. He saw me and his face opened the way it always does. Natty, don't. He hugged me anyways, which is always what happens. In the car pulling out of the airport, he put one earbud on and said, "How's everybody?" And I thought about the question, how it assumes a kind of stability, how it assumes that everybody is fixed that can be reported on, how I had shifted in the weeks since I sent that message to Daoud, since Imani had come to my table on a Tuesday, since Kareem had said I know on the phone in a voice that had 7 years of weight in it. I need to tell you something, I said. He took the other earbud out. Okay, I need you to just let me get through it. Okay, Nadia? I told him about the letter, Patricia Mills, Daoud, the 7 years, the LinkedIn message, and the message back, the conversation with Kareem and Imani, all of it while Birmingham moves past the car windows, the highways, then the exits, then the surface streets. Then the city resembling itself around us the way it always does. Malik was quiet the whole way. Not the quiet someone who doesn't know what to say, the quiet of someone who's actually listening, which are different things, and I learned not to confuse them. When I finished, he sat there for a moment. Then he said, "How old was Baba when this happened?" It was not the question I expected. I don't know exactly. Dawood is 27, so mid 30s maybe, around when he and Mama got married or just after. Malik nodded slowly. He was looking out the window. "You know what I think about sometimes?" he said. "It's what it must have been like for him coming here from Somalia in the 80s. I glanced at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he paused, organizing something. "He comes from a country that the Italians colonized, then the British. Then the Americans decided it's a Cold War chess piece. Then it falls under apart completely, and people are leaving however they can. And he ends up here in Birmingham, Alabama. A black African Muslim man in Birmingham, Alabama." He shook his head slightly. I was quiet. "I'm not excusing anything," Malik said. I think about what it costs a person to build a life when they started with nothing. I was built for them, and I think sometimes the cost shows up in people close to them." He said it gently, without anger. "I've been thinking about Baba's failure, the letter, the secret, the room in himself we couldn't get into. Something personal, something he chose. And it was that. It was something else, something larger, pressing down on a man who was already holding so much and had nowhere to put any of it. Both of those things were true. Probably both." "Dawood is 27, Alex said after a while. "No parents in Atlanta?" "Yes," I said. "And we're sitting here with Mama's sweet potato soup waiting for us?" "Yes." He turned to look at me. "Then let's go meet him," he said. "That's not even a question, Nadia." I thought about how I'd been protecting Malik from this, how I'd seen him as the one who needed shielding, Mama's baby, the youngest, the one who kept the weight away from. Here he was, 23 years old, connecting dots I hadn't connected, holding complexity I hadn't trusted him with. When did you grow up? I said. I've been growing, he said. You just kept seeing me as 8. Which is almost exactly what he would later say to Mama. Which tells you something about Osman children, that we carry the same sentences in us without knowing it. That we were shaped by the same hands, and whatever Baba and Mama built, they built something that holds. Even when it's breaking, it holds. We pulled into Mama's driveway, the porch light was on, the front curtain moved. Malik looked at the house for a moment. One more thing, he said. What? The aunties of the janaza, the Somali ones? I looked at him. You remember how they spoke Somali to each other the whole time? How they switched to English when they had mostly just to say one thing to us? Everything else was in Somali. Like Mama and us were guests in our own father's funeral. I remember I had been 24 and grieving and managing everything, and I had noticed it and filed it away in a place where I file things I don't have to feel. Yeah, I said, do you think Dawood speaks Somali? The question landed somewhere unexpected. I don't know. Because if he doesn't, Malik said quietly, then he lost that too. His father's language, the father's people, on top of everything else. He got out of the car. I sat there for a moment outside. The night was cool and Birmingham smelled like almost winter. The particular smell of southern go off the warmth slowly, reluctantly, the way southern things tend to hold on. I thought about what it means to lose a language, how colonialism works not just on bodies and land, but on the mouth. How Patricia Mill, a black woman in Atlanta, raised a son with the Somali last name and probably gave him everything else she could, and could not give him the thing that required his father to give it. How Daoud Ismail Mills grew up with half a name, half a story, and whatever language he had was only half of what was supposed to be his. What we take from people when we take their origins. What keeps getting taken generation after generation in ways that don't always look like talking. I got out of the car. Mama's sweet potato soup was on the stove. We went inside. We arrived at Mama's at 6. He opened the door, looked at all 4 of us on the porch, and said, "What happened?" Not a question, never a question with Mama. We sat in her living room. I talked. I said the letter. I said the envelope. I said Patricia Mills. And at that name, Mama went still in a way I never seen her go still before. She said quietly, "I knew that name." The room stopped. "I knew that name," she said again. "I found a number in his phone early in the marriage. We had a conversation where I asked and he didn't quite deny, and then he said it was over, and I chose to believe him." She looked at her hands. "I chose to believe him because I needed the marriage to be what I decided it was. I had 4 children. I had left my mother's church. I had left my mother's name, and I had built something with the man, and I needed it to be worth what I gave up for it." And then she said something that broke every single one of us. She said, "I spent 7 years tending the man's memory, protecting it for you, for the community, for the masjid, for his family." She stopped. "For his family, who sat in my house at his janazah and spoke Somali to each other and looked at me like I was a guest. And I made sure their tea was warm." He walked in at 12:03, taller than I expected. Dark green sweater, natural hair, beard trimmed clothes. He paused out of the entrance and looked around the restaurant, and I watched him find us. And he had Baba's jaw. He walked over. He stood at the table. We looked at each other and he said, "Assalamu alaikum." And all 3 of us said it back together, automatic, without thinking, "Wa alaikum salam." And something moved across his face that I don't have a word for. We talked for 4 hours. He asked what Baba laughed at. He asked what made him angry. And then, quietly, carefully, he asked whether Baba had been a good father. Kareem answered. He said he was present. He showed up. He had a room in himself that he kept from all of us. But he showed up. And then he said, he would have wanted to know you. Whatever got in the way of that, I believe he would have wanted to know you. Daoud nodded. And then he said something about his mother that I have not stopped thinking about since. He said she wasn't bitter. I was bitter enough for both of us when I was younger, but she said he came from a complicated place. That some people, when they're in the middle of building something, make choices they don't fully reckon with until later. He looked at his water glass. "I've had to decide that about her," he said, "and about him." "We have had to decide that too," Malik said. And in that sentence, something between us settled. Not everything, but something.